President Trump signs the bill, ending the country's longest ever shutdown. Trump put all the blame for the shutdown on his political opponents.
The extremists in the other party insisted on creating the longest government shutdown in American history, and they did it purely for political reasons. For the past 43 days, Democrats in Congress shut down the government of the United States in an attempt to extort American taxpayers for hundreds of billions of dollars for illegal aliens and people that came into our country illegally, from gangs, from prisons, from mental institutions.
After 6 weeks and more than a dozen failed attempts, the House of Representatives passed the Senate deal to fund the government and end the shutdown. The news will be celebrated by many across the nation, the fallout having left more than 1 million federal employees unpaid or out of work. Food benefits to many low-income Americans suspended. Thousands of flights for airline passengers cancelled or delayed.
So with my signature, the federal government will now resume normal operations, and my administration and our partners in Congress will continue our work to lower the cost of living, restore public safety, grow our economy, and make America affordable again for all Americans again.
But many are not convinced by Trump's claims. And many Democrats are angry that a long standoff launched by their Senate members failed to secure a deal to extend federal health insurance subsidies, an issue that came to dominate the shutdown.
Thank the distinguished gentlelady at the top. We will continue to fight to lower the high cost of living. House Democrats will continue to fight to address the health care crisis that Republicans have created. And House Democrats will continue to fight to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for tens of millions of Americans. This fight is not over. We're just getting started.
But with temporary funding only secured through to January 30th and political tensions higher than ever, the next stalemate might not be far away.
Mike Coburn is a political analyst and researcher at the European University Viadrina. I asked him about the potential fallout given the capitulation of some Democrats to break the deadlock over government funding.
Well, I think you're already seeing a lot of people, particularly within the Democratic base, who are deeply unhappy with this whole process. So what we've had essentially is this long-standing kind of negotiation period. And after the end of this, Democrats have basically caved without getting the one thing that they said was really important and was what they wanted. And I think what we're going to see in the coming weeks and months is this big cleavage within the Democratic Party around willingness to fight Trump. What's very interesting is those 8 senators that were put forward to vote in favor of this measure. They're all senators that are either retiring or whose elections don't come up for the next couple of years. So it's clear that the Democratic Party knows that this would be unpopular, at least with its own base, and has tried to take measures to mitigate that. But at the same time, I think we're going to see a huge amount of dissatisfaction from Democratic voters.
So, Mike, with that in mind, this bill only funds the government for a few months. So do you think the Democratic Party has the stomach for another fight early next year if they don't get what they want on health care?
I think at this point, it's very difficult to say. I think the Democratic Party is very nervous and very scared about the idea of appearing responsible for this. I think they're very intimidated by Trump's consistent messaging on this. I think that kind of objectively, when one party controls both the presidency and the House and the Senate, normally they're the party that gets blamed for a government shutdown or when things don't work well. But because of Trump's consistent messaging, I think that the organization of the Democratic Party, primarily organized around Chuck Schumer, is incredibly nervous about kind of trying to leverage any power and trying to get into this standoff. But as you say, I envisage we'll be back here in January and doing this all again.
Okay, one more question about the parties themselves, Mike. Tell us, who comes out the winner here? Who is getting most of the blame, the Democrats or the Republicans?
I think at the moment, most people can see that this was a Republican failure. People remember that the Republicans control all three of those institutions, the presidency, the House, and the Senate. But ultimately, in the kind of medium term leading into next year's midterm elections, this will become a messaging battle. And ultimately, in the last few years, Trump has been much better at winning those messaging battles than the Democratic Party as an institution. And I think that is where their fear comes from.
Mike, put this into the big picture for us. I mean, this is now the longest, or has been the longest, U.S. government shutdown in history. What does that say about the state of American politics right now?
It's the continuation of a long-standing process through which the two parties are able to agree on less and less. And so what we can see here is what was fought over here was reasonably modest in terms of the kind of the ACA subsidies. Probably a deal could have been done reasonably quickly that found some compromised position, but neither of the parties wants to appear like it's doing any kind of compromising in the modern American political climate. Both parties see that their incentives are not towards trying to work together. And so therefore a kind of doubling down and reinforcing those positions that they think make them look like a fighter. And I think that's what's going to be a problem for Democrats, is that they didn't stick to those positions and they kind of moved away from that and have basically conceded without getting anything tangible. If they'd have got some kind of tangible return on those ACA subsidies, I think they could at least claim the victory in terms of the substance here.
Mike Coburn, political analyst at the European University Viadrina. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And let's get more on that. We are joined by Jason Cappadonia, reporter for NBC News and iHeartRadio in Los Angeles. So, Jason, we're hearing there the spending bill passed 222 to 209, with some Democrats crossing the aisle. Walk us through in a little bit more detail what exactly is in the bill and how long government spending is now guaranteed.
Money is in the bill, and it gets the wheels of government turning again. It gets people the assistance that they need. It helps federal employees get paid, and it puts food back on people's table. I will tell you that it's really sparked some infighting within the Democratic Party, with some of those Democrats sliding over, and what some of the more high-profile Democrats saying that they defected and they sided with President Trump and the Republican Party. That's going to be an issue. The spending bill that was signed by President Trump is only guaranteed through January 30th. So now there's speculation that when the Obamacare fight or the healthcare right comes to another negotiation, it's going to be yet another shutdown, which is probably what's going to happen unless they can come together and figure out some sort of solution on that. But right now, what it does is it really just puts food on people's tables.
So talk with us about what happens now in the next days and the next weeks, because thousands of federal employees were impacted by the shutdown. What happens to them and the agencies that they work for now?
So the folks that were told, hey, don't come to work anymore because we can't pay you, those people who are furloughed, they can go back to the office tomorrow. That's exciting for hundreds of thousands of federal workers. There's also people that were working but weren't getting paid. They've missed several paychecks so far, and it's very difficult here to pay your mortgage when you're not getting paid. So, and the holiday season is coming up, so there is a bit of excitement because there's enough funding to get us through the holiday season and get people back to work. But tomorrow, the offices will open, the agencies will start funding some of the assistant food stamp cards that people receive, and people will start getting some back pay, those of the federal workers that were working but not getting paid. So that's the most exciting part about all of this. The healthcare fight and some of the other little negotiations that were happening, those are still going to continue. But right now, the fact that people can get back to work and get paycheck is the best thing.
Who gets the blame for the shutdown in the eyes of the American people?
That's a great question. And here's the thing. It depends on who you ask, right? So if you ask a Republican, well, it's the Democrats' problem. If you ask the Democrats, well, it's the Republicans' problem. President Trump made it very clear tonight when he signed the bill that the Democrats, which he called some of them extremists, we're holding up this bill. We're holding up the spending fight. So that's kind of where it lies right now. The Republicans say, hey, look, we didn't want anything. We didn't want anything more. We didn't want anything less. We just wanted to keep the government going. But we definitely want to put, Obamacare on the table and take that away as a right. They want to privatize the healthcare system because they feel that that will drive prices down. The Democrats feel that that's not the way to go. Healthcare needs to be a right for everybody. So right now, President Trump is obviously blaming the Democrats, and the Republicans are obviously, pointing the finger across the aisle, and the Democrats are doing the same thing. Speaker Hakeem Jeffries is going to get out, and he's going to be on fire for the next couple of weeks trying to get the healthcare and Obamacare rights to be funded by the federal government. And Republicans are just going to put their foot down. So it really lends itself to much more debate.
Reporter Jason Campadonia, thank you.
Thank you.